It is now 12 o'clock, and my name is Dan Salvucci, Vice Chair of the Joint Transportation. Noreen O'Toole has another meeting, so she will not be able to attend today's meeting. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. First, I'd like to read the accessibility statement. I'd like to call the order introduction to accessibility statement and the Title 5 non-discrimination statement. Accessibility statement and Title 5 non-discriminating statement to read as follows. This meeting is being accessible to the people with disabilities. Microphones and telephones will be used by all speakers. Large print material are available upon advance request. If you would like either of these accommodations, please contact Mary Walden at 508-583-1833 extension 202. This notice of non-discriminating rights is protection to beneficiaries with regards to the federal Title 5 non-discrimination protection and the state of non-discrimination precautions is posted on this meeting room and was posted in this meeting room and availability on Old Colony Planning Council's website. Please contact Mary Walden at 508-583-1833 extension 202 for more information. Thank you very much. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and do we need to go with public comments, or do you want to go around the board and make sure we have a quorum? How are we going to do this?
Sure, you can do a roll call. Town of
Right.
Abington.
John Stone.
Thanks, John. Avon. Bridgewater.
Shane O'Brien, Town Planner.
Thanks, Shane. Brockton.
Brady Winston.
Thanks, Brady. Duxbury. East Bridgewater. Easton.
Greg Swan, Easton DPW.
Thanks, Greg. Halifax. Hanover. Hanson.
Don Howard from Hanson.
Thanks, Don.
Jameson Shave, Hanson Highway Department.
Thanks, Jameson. Kingston. Pembroke. Plymouth. Plimpton. Stoughton.
Joe Scardino, Chair of the Planning Board.
Thanks, Joe. West Bridgewater. And Whitman.
Dan Salvucci, Selectman.
Thanks, Dan. And I know we have a couple of people from Brockton Area Transit.
Okay.
Yep, Mike Lambert is here, along with Glenn Geiler. Glenn will be our official representative to the meeting.
Excellent. And MassDOT District 5.
Hi, everybody. Barbara LaChance, District 5 Planner.
Thanks, Barbara. And anyone from Office of Transportation Planning, MassDOT?
Hi, this is Raisa Kwame from the Office of Transportation Planning.
Thanks, Raisa. Okay, Dan, we're all set.
Thank you very much, Bill. Next on the agenda is number 2, public comments. Is there anybody that wishes to speak? Hearing none. I'd like a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 5th, 2022. Do I hear a vote?
Hanson, Don Howard's motion.
Do I hear a second?
A second, Abington.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any discussion on it? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstains? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Communication, now we're going to number 4, communications. That's you, Sean.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. There are a
Thank
few
you.
items in the communications packet for this month. The first is the Old Colony Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting, BPAC for short. It'll be this coming Monday, June 6th at 11 a.m. And please click the link to join the meeting and email Kyle Mowat if you have any questions. The next item is a MassDOT announcement regarding the draft CIP, Capital Investment Plan, public comment period. The comment period has begun for the federal fiscal year, for the fiscal year 23 to 27 capital investment plan. The comment period will conclude June 8th, next week on Wednesday. The plan can be accessed via a PDF copy with the hyperlink in the staff report. The next item is Beyond Mobility, the Massachusetts 2050 Transportation Plan. It is a planning process that will result in a blueprint for guiding transportation decision-making and investments in Massachusetts. To get involved and learn more about the plan, please click the hyperlink for the YouTube video, and you can view the plan on the next hyperlink. And how can you get involved? MassDOT wants you to lead the conversation. Multiple ways to help. You can take a short survey, and you can follow MassDOT on Facebook and Twitter. To request any information on this planning process, please contact the project manager for Beyond Mobility, Derek Cravat, at the following email address. Next item is a virtual design public hearing in the town of Stoughton for Turnpike Street, Route 139 reconstruction. It will be held June 16th at 6 p.m. The purpose of this project is to replace a segment of Turnpike Street which experiences chronic settling and longitudinal pavement cracking, with a new pile supported roadway constructed east of its current location. Attendees will have the opportunity to ask questions and offer comments. Please visit the hyperlink in the staff report for more information and to register for this hearing. Next item is a Brockton Area Transit Rockland Micro Transit Survey. They're currently conducting the survey, and please see the following flyer to learn more about the initiative. And here is the flyer. You can scan the QR code to view it, as well as take a quick survey. And that is communications.
Thank you very much, Sean. Next on the agenda is reports. A, Brockton Area Regional Transportation Authority, BAT. Linda, I believe that's you. Hello, am I muted?
You're not muted. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't know if Michael was going to give our report or not. I do have an update.
Okay.
Do you need to share your screen, Glenn?
Nope, I don't think so. So I wanted to give an update today about our DBE goal. I think that was the next. I don't know if it's a separate slide, that's fine. So just our update, annually, we establish our disadvantaged business enterprise with a DBE participation goal. And this is in accordance with U.S. Department of Transportation Regulation 49 CFR Part 26. We have set our goal at 2.5% for the next federal fiscal year, and the goal has recently been advertised in the Brockton Enterprise on May 31st. Our DBE participation has been set at 2.5, which is for all of our eligible contract awards and eligible operating expenses. And that equates to approximately $3.5 million. If you're interested, our goal and program plan are available here at our office for the next 30 days. And comments on the goal and the plan will be accepted for the next 45 days.
Is that your report?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Move on to item B, Greater GATRA. Sean, that'll be you.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of quick updates from GATRA. It has not been officially decided yet, but I was informed that there is a new administrator in negotiation for GATRA, so very, very exciting news. Their on-demand service is continuing to increase, and on the COVID front, drivers are still wearing masks, and they are strongly encouraging them for passengers, but not requiring them at this time.
Very good. Thank you very much. We'll move on, Sean, again, South Coast Rail.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Chair. As everybody knows, the South Coast Rail going to be restoring commuter rail service between Boston and the South Coast. down to the cities of Fall River, New Bedford, going through the city of Taunton. Phase 1 is currently in process, which is expected to be completed by late next year. During the last month, they continued fencing installation in 8 communities along the Fall River and Middleborough secondary lines. The railroad work in Berkeley for the conduit drainage, grubbing, and roadbed work continued as well. There was 24-hour work conducted at the new Middleborough station site, which included bus service replacing train service for 2 days in the middle of May, as the commuter rail service was out of commission for those days, as well as another detour for railroad crossing work in the town of Lakeville. And there were also improvements made at the CSX rail yard in the town of Middleborough as well. If anybody is interested in signing up for the weekly email updates for the South Coast Rail Project, you can click on the following hyperlink and enter your email address to receive those emails.
That's it. Thank you very much, Sean. Any questions of Sean? Saying none, we'll move on to item 6, old business. A, the fiscal year 2022 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program, TIP implications. Bill, that's you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Sean, if you just want to scroll through the projects. Next one. Okay, so Town of Easton, the project for the corridor improvements on Route 138, which includes the reconstruction of the Elm Street intersection. Virtual public hearing for that was held on May 12th. Old Colony Planning Council was in attendance and provided comment. Next page. Next. It's probably near the end. And finally, as Sean noted in his communications, there is a design public hearing scheduled for the reconstruction of Turnpike Street in Stoughton, and that's going to be held on June 16th, and Old Colony Planning Council will attend that as well. And the only other update that's not highlighted in your packet that I can provide, we've gotten a lot of questions at previous meetings and also outside of this meeting about the Crescent Street at Summer Street and Grove Street project and the replacement of the Grove Street Bridge. We've been in contact with the design consultant, and happy to report that we hear that project is the design of that project is on schedule and still scheduled for advertisement in 2025. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Bill. Does anybody have any questions of to Bill? Hearing none, we'll move on to number 7, new business. A, election of Old Colony JTC officers for 2022-2023 year. Bill, that's it. You again?
Yep. So I'm just going to defer to the nominating committee who met a little while ago. So either Glenn or Joe, I think either one of you are well suited to a report on this.
Glenn, you want to go ahead?
Joe, go ahead.
Okay. I
Thank
defer
you.
to you as being the senior member on the committee.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. The committee is pleased to present the slate of officers with Noreen O'Toole as chair and Daniel Salvucci as vice chair. And we're pleased to make that nomination to the board. And after the vote is taken, we have some further discussion to share with the group.
Okay, thank you very much for nominating Noreen and myself as chair and vice chair. We need a motion of the board to verify that.
So moved, Don Howard.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second, Abington.
Okay, any discussion on it? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
objection? Abstain? Thank you very much, Noreen and I thank you very, very much. Now, you said that there may be, after the election, there may be some discussion. So Joe,
Yeah,
would you
just
like
a,
to get
just a
into that?
minute, Mr. Chairman. I'll just take a minute.
Yeah.
The committee, it was discussed that perhaps we'll have a, going forward, consider a different system where we'll seek nominations and provide for a line of succession where others may be in the wings for succession. We'd have like a first vice president, a second, a third, and after a certain term, which the committee hasn't discussed yet, that person would automatically succeed to the position over time. And we felt that would allow other people the opportunity to want to become an officer and would have a chance to see how others perform in that function, and provides for some predictability and some flexibility for people for the group going forward. So stay tuned. Next year, we'll probably be talking to you about that a few months before we usually do so.
Okay, sounds like a plan. My only comment on that, I know that Noreen and I have been chair and vice chair for quite a long time, but maybe if we start the process a bit earlier, some people will think about it for, we'll say, a month and decide whether they want to or not. And that way, because I know Noreen and I have been doing it quite a long time and we're willing to continue. But if somebody else wants to step up, if we give them more time, maybe that would help a bit.
That's a very good point, Dan. We felt that that because you two have done such a good job, that some other people might be intimidated for throwing their hat in the ring. So
no, this is it's all about freedom. If you want to be chair or vice chair and you want to go for it, absolutely throw it. I mean, I can't speak for Noreen, but for myself, I mean, it's like I've been vice chair. I've been chair and vice chair of my board of selectmen for 15 years, whatever, and so if somebody else gets nominated as chair, it doesn't mean anything against me. I think that there may be new blood, new ways of thinking, which is not a problem. That's a good thing. So if anybody does want to be chair and feels as though they're stepping on somebody's toes, no, put your name in the ring. That's it. It's that simple.
Thank you, Dan.
My thoughts. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item B. Let me read another thing. I'm telling you, the allergies, my eyes are running. Walk Boston, make Massachusetts more walkable. Bill, can you introduce Stacy on this issue? Am I muted? Okay.
No, I was muted. Sorry about
Okay.
that. So Stacy Patel is a executive director of Walk Boston, and she has agreed to come join us today and provide a presentation on what her agency does and what services they can provide. So Sean, is she on?
I'm
And
here.
she
I'm
okay? Hey,
here.
I
Stacy.
was gonna say, I'm pretty sure I saw her come
Thanks,
in.
Bill. Yes, I am here. Thanks, Bill. And thanks so much for the invitation to come talk with you today.
Yeah.
Walk Boston has had some interaction with OCPC and continues to do so. I know Mary and I both sit on the executive committee for the Transportation for Massachusetts Coalition, Mary Waldron. So I interact with her monthly, if not more often. And just historically, we've done some work with OCPC and in the city of Brockton. But let me just step back for a second and give you a little bit of background about Walk Boston. We are a statewide pedestrian advocacy organization. We've been around for almost 33 years. I've been with Walk Boston for almost 10 years, beginning as a program director and now leading it as the executive director. We have programs across the state. We do both advocacy and community empowerment work, where we work with individual residents, municipal staff, state agency staff, and really any other stakeholders that are interested in making the communities, downtowns, park spaces, safe routes to school, everything safer and more enjoyable for people to walk. So, our goal in general is to make Massachusetts more walkable And our vision is to ensure that all people, no matter race, gender, identity, lived experience, age, feel comfortable and have a space in which they can walk. So our services sort of fall into two major groups. One is primarily around advocacy, where we're doing a lot of work on specific projects, where it's letter writing to make sure that people walking are considered when new development projects are coming in, both road design projects as well as development projects in that housing or other opportunities that sidewalks and or crosswalks or traffic signals can be improved to promote better and safer walking for those people walking in those areas, and whether they be people commuting or people or residents that live there. So we often do a lot of letter writing. We attend a lot of public meetings to speak out. We also develop strategic relationships with both state agencies to start promoting policies or to ensure certain policies are promoting walking. So for example, many of you may be aware of the new MassDOT speed management policies that have been coming out and guidance that have come out. We work with them to try to ensure that the ideas and issues around walkability and safety for people walking were included in those. We also have relationships and participate in multiple coalitions that are transportation related, but also have a land use component. So we're concerned about housing, we're concerned about access to parks, because all of those places make livable, walkable communities, and those are spaces where all of us would like to live. In addition to kind of those types of advocacy efforts, we also provide technical assistance around walkability. We are not traffic engineers. We don't design actual road, streets, or projects, but we have the perspective of what makes a safe walking environment. And so we work with residents, we work with state agencies, and again, we work with municipal staff to, particularly in areas where pedestrians have, there are high incidences of fatalities and serious injuries, and work in and around it, conduct what are called walk audits. Many of you have probably participated in road safety audits that MassDOT puts out. These are similar, although less technical, and much more focused on and led by community members and their needs and their concerns. So we really provide sort of that in between, we're not a design consultant, we're not a state agency, but we are somebody that can translate the technical design aspects of what makes a walkable environment to those that are seeking to make their neighborhoods safer for walking. So we've conducted, I believe, at least 2 walk audits in Brockton, and let me see if I can drop in the chat a link to those reports that it's on our website. Do that. And what I wanted to share with you today, or take most of the time with you today, is I wanted to just provide a brief overview of a report that we've done on pedestrian fatalities that have occurred in 2021. Before I do that, in addition to these individual walk audits that target specific areas in individual cities and towns across Massachusetts, we also do longer training programs where we work directly with resident groups over a period of time, anywhere from a year to 18 months, to work with community members to build awareness and technical capacity within those communities so that they can then advocate for themselves, both in their specific neighborhoods, but then also advocate within city and town departments to get certain policies passed to, again, improve the walking environment in and around their neighborhoods. We also do some work specifically around age-friendly work. There's a movement by the World Health Organization for communities to become age-friendly communities. And one of the areas that communities are asked to look at to qualify for that program is transportation. And walking is something that we have added to that conversation, and I've been working for the last 6 years with the Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative, primarily funded through what's now called the 32 Point Foundation, I believe. It used to be the Tufts Health Plan Foundation, to do that work across Massachusetts. So that's a lot of the things that we do. And as I mentioned, we've done some specific things in the city of Brockton. We have not I was looking through all of the list of all of the communities that OCPC covers, and I don't have specific information about, although we've done some probably safe routes to school training in some of the other communities, we haven't had specific walk audits in any of them, but we'd be happy to talk to any of you about that possibility. I would like to share a report that we put together in this spring of this year. One of the things that we've found is that every life lost is tragic in a pedestrian, in a crash. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure to represent as a statewide organization is that all lives lost are important and are important to be remembered. And we also need to take the time to analyze the patterns in which of the crashes where people are being hit and killed and seriously injured, to better understand how we can improve road design so that we can prevent these deaths from occurring. So what we did over the last year, that is 2021, every month we put together a blog post that summarized the crashes where somebody walking was killed. And what we tried to do was look at Google Maps, assemble any media coverage, and find out any information we could about the specific crash and publish that information in our monthly e-news. And after doing that for a year, we wanted to look back and see what were the patterns. This is just one snapshot in time. It's not, we couldn't say that we did any specific analysis. We needed to be careful about the fact that these aren't necessarily trends, but this is a snapshot of a year of observing what's happening across the state and what types of things did we find. Let me see if I can share my screen.
You should be able to. I made you a co-host, so you should have that capability now.
Thank you. Yes, should have and do have are always different things for me, but I will do my best. All right.
There we go.
Okay, great. So this image is actually on the steps of City Hall in Springfield, where during World Remembrance Day, which is a day across the world where those lost to traffic violence are remembered. These were the
Stacy, I'm seeing what looks like a message. No, I'm not seeing
that's really unfortunate.
Image. I think you maybe shared a screen as opposed to
probably shared my Slack with you guys. Let's try this. Is that better?
Yes.
Are you still seeing? Okay, so are you seeing an image of shoes on?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a representation of the lives lost in Springfield in 2020 and 2021 that was done for World Remembrance Day, which was November of 2021. Springfield was one of the two communities that had the most fatalities in 2021. Let me move forward with this. And as I mentioned, the issue that all of us know is that every life lost on Massachusetts roads is tragic, but we lost at least 75 people walking to traffic crashes in Massachusetts, which accounts for 18% of all lives lost in traffic crashes. We had some overall findings that I just wanted to review because I think it's important to understand these crashes in relationship to how we as transportation professionals can help to improve road design to make it safer for people walking. So the first overall finding was that of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts, 47 of them had at least one fatal pedestrian crash in 2021. We also found that older adults were hit and killed at a higher rate than those in other age groups. So 36% of the fatal crash victims in 2021 were over the age of 65, whereas only 17% of the population in Massachusetts is over 65. So that's a huge overrepresentation. Over half of the Massachusetts fatal pedestrian crashes occurred on streets with speed limits of 30 to 35 miles per hour. That does not say that the drivers were driving at that speed. It means that those roads themselves had speed limits set at that. And I think that's important to understand because those are our neighborhood streets and main streets where more people are walking and where we want those environments to be safe. And roughly 65% of the people killed while walking were on roads owned by a city or town, and approximately 35% were walking on roads owned by a state agency. I'll go into why we pulled out these 4 findings as being significant in the next couple of slides. But before I do that, just to give you some national context, Massachusetts is actually doing relatively, is remaining steady in terms of the number of fatalities that are happening through every year. That's not the case in the rest of the nation. So in the first 9 months of 2021, and some additional reports from GHSA and others have come out, that the highest number of fatalities are happening during the first 9 months of last year since 2006. So across the nation, pedestrian fatalities are rising. In Massachusetts, as I mentioned, it's not quite, we're not necessarily reflecting that trend, which is a good one. However, we are still remaining, despite all of our complete streets efforts, all of our Vision Zero efforts, all of our efforts across the state, which, you know, for many states in the nation, Massachusetts is relatively progressive when it talks about road design. We're still not making a lot of progress. And we have some ideas about why that's the case, but just important to give some national context and some context over time. So I mentioned of our first finding, over 351 cities and towns had, of them, 47 had a fatal pedestrian crash. And I'll put a link once I'm done sharing my screen into the chat box that links you directly to this report. The report was published in Story Maps, which allows you to, it's GIS based, so it allows you to click on each one of these individual walking symbols and you can find out details of what happened in that particular crash. The communities where the majority of crashes happened, again in Springfield and Boston, were the outliers with 9 pedestrian fatalities in 2021. And then the other communities had less than 4, you know, Lowell and Brockton had 3, and then the other communities had 2. So one of the things, being that we're an advocacy organization, we just didn't want to send out all of this bad news. We wanted to provide opportunities for action steps. So we went through and identified each of the different action steps that we thought would address each of the findings. So in this one, obviously the biggest one is better road design. One thing to mention, since many of you are representing different communities across OCPC, we host a group called the Walk Massachusetts Network. We have monthly call-in meetings where we discuss different issues, and it's really an opportunity to learn from other organizations that are working on walking across the state. You know, similar barriers, similar success stories. It's been a great forum, and I can also drop that into the chat. Bill, how much time do I have? I don't want to continue taking too much time if others have.
It's an important subject. Keep going.
Okay, all right. The second finding, and one that's troubling, is that older adults were hit and killed more often than those in other age groups. And as I mentioned, you know, 36% of the people killed were over the age 65, and that's highly overrepresented in terms of the population of people 65 and older in Massachusetts. I mentioned that we do some age-friendly walking work, and we work together with the Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative, who works together with the WHO and others to promote age-friendly or kind of aging in community. If your community hasn't started doing this type of work, you can connect with the Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative, and then also connect with us if there are specific issues that you have around walking. The third finding was the speed limit issue. And I mentioned that MassDOT has put out this new guidance around speed. We are happy that they have made it easier to digest. We have some thoughts about how they could advance their policies, but we won't share those at the moment. We've shared them with MassDOT, and we continue to work on it. But one of the things that's important to understand from a planning standpoint is that, as I mentioned, these 30 and 35-mile-an-hour roadways, these are where the majority of people are walking, because those are our main streets and our neighborhood streets. And that's where people are getting killed. So we really need to take time to figure out ways of reducing speeds is the major issue that we're talking about. And this graphic is courtesy of NHTSA, but it also appears in the MassDOT speed management guidance. talks about speed and the relationship between pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries. Many of you have probably seen this graphic or one similar. Essentially, one of the things that I like about this graphic is it does have that third line that talks about the cone of vision. And cone of vision is really indicative of reaction time. The faster you're going, the less you can see. The faster you're going, the longer it takes you to react and slow down. So this graphic shows that if you were hit by a car going 20 miles per hour, you have a 13% chance of dying. If that car is going 40 miles per hour, that serious injury and fatality risk goes all the way up to 73%. And this is even higher for older adults or those with disabilities.
Wow.
So some action steps, again, that MassDOT speed management guidance that's out. If communities don't have complete streets policies and prioritizations plans, that's something that we can help advise on and point you to ways of both kind of leading communities through the policy and then also prioritization plan, and then thinking about projects that can be funded. Many of you also, I'm sure, have talked about the Shared Streets and Spaces grant program. Many communities have taken advantage of that. It was a COVID-inspired program that's continuing that allows communities to do short-term, low-cost fixes to the walking, biking environment, has some outdoor dining aspects, as well as some safe routes to school opportunities and older adult opportunities as well. And then we are one of the lead organizations in the Massachusetts Vision Zero Coalition, and we continue to support the idea of automated enforcement and legislation, although we're completely frustrated with what's going on in the State House right now, but we are still continuing to push on all things traffic safety, and one of those things being automated enforcement legislation. I think I saw a hand raised.
Yes, Joe Scardino has his hand raised.
Did you have a
Yes,
question, Joe?
yes. I want to raise a point to Stacy. And my comments are going to fall in two areas. One, in the town of Stoughton, we have two state highways that converge in our town center. And one of the problems is you got 2 lanes one way and 2 lanes another. And if a truck is in the left lane, we do have very sophisticated pedestrian signaling crossing. And those are, the problem with those is that you can't see a pedestrian on the other side if there's a truck. So for example, if a car is next to a truck and the pedestrian is going from the left side to the right side, the car doesn't see, the truck stops, but the car doesn't see the pedestrian proceeding in front of the truck. Now, that's one observation within the OCPC area. In the winter, I had a consulting arrangement in Boston. I spent a lot of time commuting in by rail and then walking to my destination. And I noticed one of the problems was the yield of pedestrian, where the pedestrian light indicates to walk, but the car approaching the intersection, turning left or right, has a yield to pedestrian sign. And I've noticed a lot of confusion at those they're kind of like conflict points. And the last point I wanted to make is that perhaps you could do a grant program where, first of all, that cities and towns in the OCP area we're able to get grants for sophisticated upgrades to, if they don't have any, a grant to put in pedestrian crosswalk signs. And if they do have them, to work on, a lot of times they get out of timing, and so they don't sequence with the traffic lights. So you get a traffic light that turns green, and the lighting, the pedestrian crosswalk sign is still saying cross. And the other thing, in the urban areas, you might want to have a program that checks the length of time depending on how many lanes you have to cross, especially for seniors who take a little bit more time to cross those streets. And I know I was having some difficulty sometimes making it across during the timing on the signaling. So just some thoughts.
No, thanks for sharing those. Those are all very common issues that we find in many of the areas that we work in across the state. I mean, you're describing sort of a double threat situation where one car might stop for a crosswalk and then the other one doesn't see them, and that's a huge issue in terms of the safety of the person walking. And then it sounds as though you're describing the issues around traffic signals and concurrent and exclusive timing, whether or not you're walking with the green or not with the green. And that has to do with a lot of decisions around right turning traffic, number of cars, vulnerable populations, whether it be near a school or senior housing facility. So there, all of the things you mentioned, Joe, are things that we wrestle with a lot of the different communities in which we work. And in terms of grant programs, you know, we do have some ideas about or some sources that we've put together, a list that communities can look to. We are, as an organization, don't put out grants ourselves, but we've consolidated some lists about where to get funding to improve, to do mobility improvements. So I can pass that along as well. But thank you for your comments. I will just move on to the last finding that we talked about, and this is not a finding that says if it's, you know, that there are more traffic fatalities on MassDOT roads versus city-owned roads. The importance of understanding from our perspective as a pedestrian advocacy organization is that when someone comes to us that says, this street is very dangerous, I want to make a change, we need to understand who owns that street. Because if MassDOT owns that street, then it's one group of individuals that we work with. It's a different timing schedule. It can be, you know, if it's owned by the state, it can be eligible for certain types of funding, and it cannot be eligible for certain types of funding. So it's important for us to understand us, and then to transfer that information to residents too, about knowing who owns the road is really knowing who has the power to change it. And so what we do with this particular report is provide people with the resources to find out who owns that road, and then to point them to the people that they can speak with to start the process of trying to make change in those areas. I'll drop this in the chat so you can have it. I can also send these slides to Bill later if he wants to distribute them to people. The point of sharing this information with you is, I'm guessing that many of you know the issues around pedestrian fatalities across the state, and I'll stop sharing at this point. But it's important to understand the details of who's being affected, where they're being affected, and that all of us can really can work with those individuals and communities to make change, to make our road designs safer for people walking. So I will put that information in the chat. And if you have any additional questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. And I'll also put my email in the chat if anybody would like to get in touch with me to talk about any more about Walk Boston.
Thank you very much. That was very impressive. Just one comment that I have in my town. Our DPW commissioners got a grant to do some knockouts in the center of town so that to lessen the distance between one side of town to the other. The biggest issue that I find with walkers in my area of Whitman is that because we have a center of town that has a lot of businesses, they may walk the sidewalk, but decide to cross the street and there's no crosswalk. Instead of walking 30 or 40 more feet to another crosswalk, they just cross where they want between parked cars, and it can be dangerous. I think lowering the speed in the center of towns might be a way of solving that issue. You know, dropping it down to maybe 15 to 20 miles an hour, but that could also open up Pandora's box if the speed is higher than what it is already located at, and the speed could actually change and go up. So I really don't want to take that chance.
Right.
But I do find that people need to be more aware when they're walking. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Springfield for a convention, and that is a very walkable area around, especially around with the casinos and things like that, and the Hall of Fame. So the Basketball Hall of Fame, where I was around, and I saw thousands of people walking. It was a beautiful day, and they were just crossing where they were crossing and not crossing where there was either crosswalks, or even if there was a crosswalk, pushing the button and waiting for their signal to cross. They just wait to see if there's no traffic, they can get across the street. They need to be aware of what they are doing and take some type of personal liability for what they're doing and putting things in danger. And also Joe's point about not being able to see around a truck, it crossed my mind that if there is a truck where an area or an intersection where trucks are usable, maybe setbacks from the crosswalk a little bit more on left or right turns so that cars that are in the middle can see around those vehicles. Might be a way of, helping that situation. My observations.
Yeah, no, those are good ones. I will say though, I agree that all of us as road users need to take responsibility, personal responsibility for our safety. I think it can get tricky when we start talking about shared responsibility because somebody driving a truck has a lot more safety than somebody who's walking across the street. So while all of us need to respect traffic laws, those of us that are more vulnerable and that we're not in these highly incredibly safe huge SUVs or whatever they happen to be need to have a fighting chance when we're crossing the street. So as you can tell, that's one of the issues that we feel is and we and others know that it has been a huge contributor to the either steady or increase in pedestrian fatalities is the size of vehicles and the fact that it is just so incredibly difficult for a driver of those vehicles, one, to see people and also to stop quickly. And just the size of them some of them are just incredible. So anyway, I could go on, but again, thank you very much for inviting me today. And
very informative. Thank you very much.
I will put more information in. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
thank you.
Stacy.
Yeah. All right. Next on the agenda is item C, the draft for 2023 Old Colony Unit Planning Work Program. Charlie?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So on your screen, you have a staff report for the draft Unified Planning Work Program, which was released to a public review and comment period by the MPO on May 17th. So the Unified Planning Work Program is a scope of work and budget for the transportation staff of the MPO for the upcoming federal fiscal year. And the tasks are grouped into 4 main areas. And you can see on this slide, task number 1, it's management and support of the planning process and certification activities. And just a quick
Excuse
spotlight.
me, Charlie, for 1 second. Can everybody hear Charlie? Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yes.
So task 1000 has multiple elements in here. Task 1100, 3C process, that's the administrative work. Task 1200, that's the Unified Planning Work Program. Task 1300, that's the Public Participation Program. And as we heard earlier from Bill, what was the Transportation Improvement Program that's done on an annual basis. And last but not least in this grouping is Task 1500, Title VI and Environmental Justice. Next slide. So this has the remaining grouping of projects. Task 2000, 3000, 4000. Task 2000 is data reconnaissance, acquisition, and analysis activities. And you can see here, there's multiple groupings of sub-projects such as demographic and land use surveillance, multimodal transportation system data surveillance, that's our traffic counting program. Jumping down to 2400, that's our geographic information systems and mapping. And rounding out this group, we have the management systems, which is comprised of congestion, pavement, and safety. And this subtask also includes travel demand modeling. Task 3000 is short range and long range transportation planning activities. And this has our discretionary grouping of projects. And jumping down the list, task 3300 is the Route 18 corridor study, Bridgewater and East Bridgewater. Next up, we have a 20-year look forward long-range transportation plan. And we also have a coordinated human services transportation plan. And special thanks to Raisa for starting an effort to coordinate plan development across MPOs. There's going to be some staff level coordination meetings over the next couple of weeks or two to talk about common ideas and how to address the gaps in service and identify potential projects. And last but not least, task 4,000 is transit technical assistance, and then also BAT planning and technical studies. So that's a quick overview. This was released, as I said, by the MPO to a public review and comment period. We're here to entertain any comments, and I believe Bill provided the entire document when he sent out the meeting invite. And on the next slide is the actual, this is actually a fun graphic. So people ask sometimes, hey, where do you do your traffic counts, turning movement counts, local technical assistance studies? And this is a graphic that shows a trend beginning in 2015 through 2021, whereas the counts being done. So you can see the city of Brockton is a big winner with 169 traffic counts. And then who has requested, say, the most local technical assistance studies? Second column from the right, it looks like the town of Plymouth was 17 over that time period. But this is a kind of an equity analysis of where we're doing some of this specialized work. Next slide. So if you just want to pan through this, is the actual document itself. It's posted on our website. Bill provided in advance. So we're looking for any questions or comments from the JTC, and ultimately this would be an action item for the JTC to approve it if that's their favor.
Okay, that being said, is there any questions of Charlie on this plan? Nobody has their hand up?
I don't see it.
Wow. Wow.
They must
Okay.
love it.
Yeah, well, I do. Do I hear a motion to approve this plan? Is there?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
That being said, any further discussion? Seeing none or hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any objection? Abstain? Motion passes, Charlie.
Great, thank you.
We'll move on to number 8, old business, community local technical assistance study. Bill.
Thank you, Dan. Very brief update today. So on your screen is your staff report for local technical assistance program. We'll continue to work on a few projects. You can see on your screen. We have one new request this past month. The town of Stoughton requested an aerial survey of Echo Park using our drone program. And so I know Kyle is working with the town on scheduling that, and that'll be this early summer when the weather is nice and everything's green and it's going to look really nice. So beyond that, if you guys have any questions on these projects, happy to answer them, but that concludes my report otherwise.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions of Bill on this issue? Seeing none, we'll move on to item B, staff review on ENF, EIRs, and NPCs. Kyle.
Thank you, Dan. Sean, you can go to the next slide.
There you go.
So we have one new project. It's in Bridgewater, the Lakeshore Center, Phase 4. And this Phase 4 includes the following components. 1-story, approximately 1,800 square foot cafe shop, a 5-story, 150 unit assisted living facility, 4-story, 225 unit to 55 plus residential community, a 4-story, 102 room hotel, and a 4-story, 160 unit condo community. And then there's also going to be a 6,000 square foot restaurant on the north side of Pleasant Street, adjacent to Lake Nipponicket. And then along with this, there's going to be about 1,000 parking spaces proposed to accommodate for those uses. And then we have one certificate for the town of Plymouth, the Long Beach Mixed Sediment Nourishment Project. And that certificate states that this project that is going to require the submission of an environmental impact report. And then we have two public notices. The first one is for East Bridgewater, notice of intent to initiate an ecological restoration project. And this would be replacing the deteriorated culvert at the Pond Street crossing of the Setauket River. And that's in order to mitigate further deterioration to prevent potential flooding caused by the existing undersized culvert. And finally, it's a public notice for the town of Plymouth for the notice of scope of work for a hydrogeological evaluation. And this is for a proposed soil absorption system that's going to be located at 450 Little Sandy Pond Road. And this is in support of a future application for a groundwater discharge permit. And that's going to be for the subsurface disposal of 33,000 gallons per day of treated wastewater. And that concludes my report from MEPA.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Any questions of Kyle? Seeing none. Any region, move on to item C, regional concerns. Any regional concerns to deal with? Wow.
Mr. Chairman, just a point here. I don't know where it could fit in the agenda, but I did want to inform the group that we lost a member. John Charbonneau is leaving the town of Stoughton tomorrow, and next week starting a planner's position in the town of Westwood, Mass. So anybody, friends, colleagues that are looking for planning positions, let them know that the town of Stoughton will be looking for candidates.
Okay.
And I wanted to inform the group of that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Anything further?
Yes, this is Bruce Hughes. Can I ask our MassDOT friends, when is that second bridge over the train tracks on Route 18 going to open? Is it ever going to open?
You know how many times that's been asked, Bruce?
Well, I'm asking today, Dan.
Yeah. Can anybody answer that?
I cannot answer that at all. I do not know.
It seems frustrating because it looks like it's done, and
Right, needs it, well,
Bruce, do they have a resident engineer from MassDOT that you can contact?
yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up, Charlie.
I don't know, Barbara, do you have that number? Do you know who it is?
I do not. I can actually try to get you guys an update and email it if you would like.
that would be very good.
Thank you.
That way, if you send it to next time we have a meeting, whether it's the MPO or JTC, you can put that on the agenda for an update. Is that in our Old Colony region? That's not in our area, right?
No.
So, but it would be nice because people from our area do travel Route 18 going to Weymouth. And that can be frustrating, especially going to South Shore Hospital, we'll say. Can be very frustrating.
Or the South Coast Veterinary. I've
Is this,
had to take our cat there several times lately.
Yeah.
Is this a project that's in Weymouth? Or is
Yeah.
this? Oh, Weymouth wouldn't be ours.
No.
That would be District 6, I believe. But I can see what I can find out for you guys. Maybe
Thank you
if
very
you could email me a little bit more information on it. And I can see what I can find out.
All right, thank you.
It's primarily Weymouth. It does extend.
Is it including us too?
It doesn't. It does. Yeah, it does
It's
extend into
Abington,
Abington.
Okay.
Comes down to Route 139.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
getting
that
myself
being said,
confused here. Very good. Thank you, guys.
okay. Nothing else? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I hear a
Second,
Second,
Abington.
okay. Any further discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, enjoy. All right, thank you very much.